Still at it, still looking just as young as I did 25 years ago. I still have my hair after all those years. Kind of happened organically back in the day. It's like I didn't have any big plan or business plan or pretty much anything, a script to follow of any kind. I think it was just all, a passion for the sport, and for me, the part of it was innovating the products to help, the talented racer guys go faster. And so the brand kind of evolved and developed kind of through osmosis, from just being there and doing it, which, is about as authentic as you can get. Our ethos, whatever you want to call it, is racing. Intense, like our true north is racing. And just recently we've had to kind of revisit our brand a little bit as we're trying to grow into the market and actually grow into the brand as a business and improve things. We've had to kind of revisualize like what is the heart and soul of our brand, and so we did a lot of exercises and we came back, it's about racing. 1990, the first bikes I developed, I didn't even build hardtails or road bikes or anything. I just, because from riding motocross bikes and things and riding off-road, I kind of realized then that if I'm going to make a mountain bike, it's going to have suspension. And there were forks around already, and so the full suspension thing was from day one. Intense made full suspension bikes. And so the early adopters that saw like my first trail bike, the Spider, and this is like circa 1990, 91, had 3 inches of travel, and and it was really a trail bike for all around riding. It was quite light. But at the time, the cross country racers were all about hardtails. There'd been a few bigger brands put some suspension bikes out with elastomers and things that really kind of weren't efficient and gave maybe suspension bikes kind of a bad name initially. So this was something that actually had a suspension system that was efficient when pedaling and well, it still remained active, things like that. So some of the early, the DH riders, which were on rigid bikes with suspension forks or like disc wheels and things like that, saw this bike, and actually the Spider was being used as a downhill rig very early on in kind of my local area. And then I, realized that the action was kind of around downhill, and it got the media attention, and extreme sports were the big thing at the time. So that it lined up. I kind of focused on the downhill stuff, and I realized there was a need for a downhill specific bike, so I kind of started working on that. In 1993, I started really on the M1, but it was a McPherson strut bike. It had an air shock. It used a Fox Alps air shock configuration. And it probably wasn't until 94, 95 that I started working with Sean Palmer that we realized that, hey, we can evolve this thing, and went to a linkage driven system, kind of a 4-bar, and increased the travel and got a coil shock going and this sort of thing, which was the big jump that really, kind of evolved the bike into a more thoroughbred downhill
machine. Which is then the M1, right?
Yeah, and that's actually was what I really considered the M1 as the race machine. And, it was very moto influenced at the time, the construction, cartridge bearings everywhere, the linkage driven coil shock, the manufacturers I was getting my shocks made from were actually made suspension for motocross bikes, Noline and Works Performance and some companies like that. Cooster, who made shocks for off-road racing trucks. 2000, the 2004 era there was, we really got this new surge of riders from Australia, the kind of young guns from down there, Chris Kavarik, Nathan Rainey, all these boys, that, Sam Hill, that, some of these guys are still racing, some have retired, but they're very aggressive racers, and kind of dominating the scene. It wasn't just North America and Europe anymore. There's a whole new continent of and riders from the UK also shining again. 2009, yeah, I believe was the year. We had two downhill bikes at the time. We had the M9 and the 951, and the 951 was more of a park bike. I was trying to be our more affordable downhill rig. And so it was pretty easy to configure that into a 29er. And, as far as like trail bikes and things, we were well into 29ers at that time, and had several models in the line and some bigger travel 29ers at the time. So it was kind of natural for me to want to try it on a downhill bike from everything we had learned,
Too early for most people to understand it.
I would say that we were a little bit ahead of time, yeah, for sure. And
Like 7 years.
yeah, more well, but a lot of it more from the equipment support stand side. Even though it worked great, and the riders who rode it and raced it really liked the bike. We didn't have the tires or the forks or to support. To support like someone to race in the World Cup or whatever. So this wasn't there yet. The industry wasn't there yet. So 29ers are going in North America and in the U.S. We had kind of our first wave of where 29ers kind of hit the market and people realized them. But I think in that first wave, I'm going back to like late like 2009, 10, around then. Europe, the European market didn't really grasp it, They didn't jump on 29ers like we did. But then 27.5 came along, and of course, pretty much globally that was adopted. But now, I think, again, there's another 29 resurgence in the last year or so. And now this one, and like I see Europe is much bigger, jumping on board with like for enduro class bikes and trail bikes and this sort of thing with 29. And in North America, US, we're having our second wave. I do think this is another progression forward in the sport as far as the equipment goes. You have a lot of those little milestones with riders and riding techniques and tracks and like different equipment, brakes and drivetrains and stuff. But as far as for a whole new wheel size and I'd have to say frame architecture, layout that works with the 29-inch format. That it's another one of those little stepping stones for sure. Yeah, and definitely unfinished business for us because it's something I kind of always wanted to do. But now the difference is now we have the industry support behind it with the wheels and the tires and the forks and everything you need. Even good chiming with larger rotors and things like that for brakes. It's like.
So you happy with it?
No, the project, this is what Intense is all about, right? And so it's really good timing with us kind of coming full circle and, again, realizing that in racing is Intense Cycles true north. It's like what our brand, it's the heart and soul of our brand. And through racing, product innovation, and using the racing program to develop new products and a lot of these ideas and aesthetics and everything will trickle down through the bike line and you'll start seeing that. But it kind of starts here at the top. And so, getting back to that where, for me, where Intense started years ago, 25 years? Yeah, years ago. It's a really exciting time for me, and I'm having a lot of fun, almost like getting to re-experience this with the, when you have a child, and you go back to Disneyland after you hadn't been there for years,